Hi, my wonderful women. Welcome. So, you probably may have heard that it was two men that discovered the structure of DNA, James Watson and Francis Crick. Their discovery of the double helix is considered one of the greatest scientific breakthroughs in human history. But what many people don't know is that their discovery depended heavily on the work of a woman. A woman whose name was, of course, erased from the story. Her name was Rosalind Franklin. Rosalind Franklin was a British chemist and X-ray crystallography expert working in London in the early 1950s. Her job was to study DNA molecules using a technique that could photograph molecular structures. And in 1952, she produced something extraordinary. An X-ray diffraction image that would later become famous. Scientists call it Photo 51. This photograph revealed a pattern that strongly suggested DNA had a helical structure. In other words, it was a crucial clue to understanding the blueprint of life. But here's where the story becomes twisted and complicated. Without Rosalind's knowledge, the image was shown to two other scientists, James Watson and Francis Crick. When Watson saw the photograph, he immediately recognized what it suggested. DNA had to be a helix. Rosalind's data provided the critical experimental evidence that allowed Watson and Crick to build their famous model of the DNA double helix. And soon after, they published the paper that changed biology forever. Rosalind was also working in a difficult environment. At King's College London, she frequently clashed with colleague Maurice Wilkins. Part of the tension came from the fact that Wilkins had mistakenly assumed that Rosalind was going to be his assistant, rather than an independent scientist leading her own research. And their relationship was strained from the beginning. At the time, many scientific institutions were still not particularly welcoming environments for women researchers. So, who got the credit for this major, massive, huge discovery? In 1962, the Nobel Prize for discovering the structure of DNA was awarded to James Watson, Francis Crick, and Maurice Wilkins. Rosalind Franklin was not included. And by that time, by the time of the Nobel Prize, she had already died of cancer at just 37 years old. But it's not just because of the fact that Nobel Prizes are only awarded to people who are alive that she didn't get credit. Of course she didn't get credit. Of course nobody mentioned her. Of course nobody knew about her. However, many historians now acknowledge that Rosalind's work was essential to the discovery of DNA's structure. Rosalind's story is not unique. History is full of women whose work was overlooked, minimized, or credited to male colleagues. For decades, textbooks repeated a simplified version of the story. Watson and Crick discovered DNA. Today, Rosalind Franklin is finally being recognized as one of the key scientists, if not the most important scientist, behind one of the most important discoveries in biology. But imagine how many other women, scientists, inventors, creatives, thinkers, whose names were never recovered. Brilliant ideas, absolutely awesome creations, and major breakthroughs that were made by women while existing in a system, in a world that is against them, that oppresses them, working quietly behind the scenes only for males to steal their ideas, their creations, their breakthroughs, and take credit for them. Imagine how many cases of that exists that we don't know about, but there are many that we know about, and I will be talking about them. So the next time you hear someone say, Watson and Crick discovered DNA, I want you to remember her name, Rosalind Franklin. Thank you for tuning in. May women continue to rise, and may the matriarchy rise.